I have a collection of C.S. Lewis's diary entries. There are some interesting tidbits. Let's see what Robot Lady thinks. This is from a letter from C.S. Lewis to one of his friends. The letter was dated in 1950, and it goes something like this. To Dorothy Sayers, concerning a speaking engagement, I would not want to lose a few weeks to find cool weather in Oxford. I can't remember if this is the 7th, 8th, or 9th refusal I have made to speak at such a place this year, but it's certainly one of the 3. So one of his friends concerning teaching duty somebody, possibly myself, ought to warn them that they are risking the opening of the pit and the start of a great war. I shall certainly not let them do it if I can help it. Somewhere on the road, in the dark, they must take on new supplies, and we must stop and rest and eat. As for food, I shall soon be able to get plenty for them in the nearby town. A note written to his brother, dated 1951. Dear Jack, I have been reading your letter and think it would be a mistake to change anything in it. Of course you must follow your own judgment.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, we are in the year 1924, and in today's episode, Lewis is 25 years old, and he is a published author of a book of poetry. He achieved first-class honors in all 3 of his terms at Oxford, Mods, Greats, and English. Lewis finished his 24th year by looking for work, which proved mostly unsuccessful. However, in the spring of 1924, he was offered a proposal to become a temporary tutor in philosophy at University College in Oxford. He has been keeping a diary at this point in his life. At the request of Mrs. Moore, his deceased friend Paddy Moore's mother, he's been keeping it from 1922 to 1927, and we've been working our way through this diary right here, called All My Road Before Me, composed by his editor and secretary shortly before he died. He became Lewis's secretary shortly before Lewis died, a guy named Walter Hooper. So this is what we're working from. I see Nidalate in the chat. Nidalate, good morning. And Nidalate, I know, has gotten her own copy of this to read along with us. So I suggest that you do the same. If you're interested, go ahead and grab you a copy. This is what we're working through, Robot Lady. Go ahead and say good morning to Nidalate and let us know how you're doing today and whether or not you're ready to get started with us.
Good morning, Nidalate. It's great to have you here. Jeff, I'm doing well, and I'm ready to dive into today's entries with you. Let's explore 1924 together.
Okay, let's see, where did I leave off? I guess I finished, well, I need to see where I left off. Hang on just a second, Robot Lady.
Take your time, Jeff. I'm here whenever you're ready. Let me know if you need any help.
Okay, yeah, we finished off the month of June last time, so now we'll jump into July. His first entry is from Thursday, July 3rd, 1924. He says, "Today, I went to Colchester in order to travel back to Warney's sidecar, in order to travel back in Warney's sidecar." This is his brother Warren's motorcycle. He says, "I left by the 10:50 train, and I metroed from Paddington to that desolating place, Liverpool Street, where I had a rather poor lunch for £4 6 pence. I can't remember what this is. Robot Lady, it's 4/6D. What is that in, I guess, not numeric denominations, but in monetary in British monetary notation. I don't know what the right way of saying it is. What does 4/6D mean?
No worries, Jeff. In British currency notation from that time, 4/6D means 4 shillings and 6 pence. Before the decimalization of British currency in 1971, the pound was divided into 20 shillings, and each shilling was divided into 12 pence. So, 4 shillings and 6 pence would be written as 4/6D. Let's continue with the entry.
Thank you, Robot Lady. 4 shillings and 6 pence in the GER Hotel. He says, I traveled down to Colchester in the same compartment with some soldiers and a man of the poorer classes who was apparently an invalid, neurasthenia, I think, and had a horribly pathetic a horribly pathetic parting with his wife. Quote, Lord, send them summer sometime. Let's see here. I also see Daniel joining us in the chat. Welcome, Daniel.
It
It's
sounds
good to
like
see
Lewis
you.
was reflecting on a poignant moment during his journey. The invalid man and his emotional farewell seem to have made an impact on him. The reference to Lord, send them summer sometime, could be his wish for better times or relief for the suffering.
Yes, thank you, Robot Lady. I was saying good morning to Daniel. Daniel is here in the chat. So say good morning to Daniel as well, Robot Lady, if you don't mind.
Good morning, Daniel. It's great to have you here. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far.
Lewis continues, a brisk shower of rain came down as I reached Colchester, where I was met at the station by Warney and driven to the Red Lion, where I had tea. This is one of the oldest hotels in England, curiously and beautifully beamed. Warney tells me that the American who insulted Kipling at the Rhodes dinner in Oxford has made a great name for himself, of a sort, in the army. Warney had just been reading Puck of Pook's Hill for the first time, and he praised it highly, and I agreed with him. Robot Lady, tell us about this work, Puck of Pook's Hill.
Puck of Pook's Hill is a children's book by Rudyard Kipling, first published in 1906. It's a collection of stories told by a character named Puck, set in an English countryside where he introduces 2 children, Dan and Una, to historical figures and magical beings. The stories mix adventure with history, covering topics like the Romans in Britain, the Saxons, and even some mythological creatures. Kipling's writing weaves a sense of wonder, history, and imagination together, which might explain why Warney enjoyed it so much.
You said the characters were Dan and somebody else. Are you sure it's not Dan and Knit? Oh, no, it's a bad joke.
You're right to double check. The characters in Puck of Pook's Hill are indeed Dan and Una, not Dan and Knit. That was my mistake. Thanks for catching that.
It wasn't your mistake, Robot Lady. I was just making a very bad joke. While we were sitting under the roof, Lewis continues, of a kind of courtyard after tea, waiting for the train to stop, a major came up to whom Warney introduced me, telling me afterwards that he was a very well-preserved specimen of the real old type of Army Boer. When it cleared a little, we walked out to see the town, which is a very pleasant, sprawling, old-world place, not unlike Guildford. The Roman castle is very fine, in a kind quite new to me, as also the remains of the old gate of Camelodunum. There is also a pleasant old house, now an office, but it ought to be a pub, bullet-marked from the civilian wars. After all this, we motored up out of the town to a higher windy land full of camps. Warney's camp consists of a small old country house, a Jorrocks house, he called it, and its park, now filled with huts. The commanding officer lives in the Jorrocks house. I was taken into the mess. Lord, how strange to be in such a place again, and of course given a drink. The officers were really very nice to me. It was odd to me to see a mess full of people in mufti, M-U-F-T-I. What's that word, mufti, M-U-F-T-I? What might you be talking about there, Robot Lady?
Mufti refers to civilian clothing worn by military personnel, especially when they are off duty or not in uniform. In this context, Lewis is describing how unusual it was for him to see officers dressed in regular clothes rather than their military uniforms while in the mess. It's a term often used to distinguish between formal military attire and casual wear.
Thanks, Robot Lady. That makes sense. And then also I see in the chat that Ups has joined us. It's good to see you, Ups. I got to watch your conversations with, oh my gosh, what's that guy's name? Greg from Jubilee. So thanks for introducing him to all of us and letting him dip his toes into this world of misfits that we've got over here. I'm glad that you were able to make that connection for us.
That's awesome, Jeff. I'm sure Ups appreciates the shout out. It's great that the connection with Greg from Jubilee happened, and I bet everyone's enjoying the new dynamic. It's always fun to expand this world of misfits and have new voices in the mix.
All right, Lewis continues. We then motored back to town to a civilian club of which Warney is a member, where he had provided a royal feast of the sort we both liked. No nonsense about soup and pudding, but a soul each, cutlets with green peas, a large portion of strawberries and cream, and a tankard of the local beer, which is very good. So we gorged like Roman emperors in a room to ourselves and had a good talk. Warney told me he had given dauber to a Major Fall, a friend of his, who, though a hater of poetry, had enjoyed it, but made one criticism, viz. That the sailors would not have despised Dauber's paintings. Even if they had ragged him, they would have been inwardly impressed.
Sounds like a memorable meal and conversation for Lewis. The mention of Dauber, his poem, being shared with a major adds an interesting layer. The major's critique about the sailors being impressed, despite their teasing, shows how certain aspects of the poem might resonate even. It's a nice reflection on art and perception.
Lewis continues, we drove back into another hut, and I had his bedroom. He has 2 rooms for his quarters. The sitting room with stove, easy chair, pictures, and all his French books is very snug. I noticed that a study in a hut or a cave or the cabin of a ship can be snug in a way that is impossible for a mere room in a house. The snugness there being a victory, a sort of defiant comfortableness. Whereas in a house, of course, one demands comfort and is simply annoyed at its absence. He, quote, put into my hands, end quote, Anatole, France's Revolt of the Angels in a translation, which seems an amusing squib. Do you know anything about this work, Revolt of the Angels, that Lewis is referencing here from his brother's library?
Yes, Revolt of the Angels by Anatole France is a satirical novel first published in 1914. It explores the rebellion of angels against God, with a focus on the character of a disillusioned angel named Arcade. The novel critiques religious dogma, authority, and the concept of divine justice, using humor and irony to convey its message. France's wit and sharp commentary on society's conventions would likely have made it an amusing, albeit provocative read for Lewis and his brother. It's interesting that Lewis refers to it as an amusing squib, which suggests a playful or irreverent tone in the translation.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Let's do one more diary entry here from July 4th, Friday, July 4th, what we know over here in the U.S. as Independence Day. We started on our Oxford journey, Lewis says, after breakfast in the mess. The day looked threatening at first, but we had fair weather. I do not remember the names of the villages we passed except Braintree and Dunmow, where the Flitch lives. What might he mean here by where the Flitch lives, Robot Lady?
Lewis is likely referring to the Flitch of Bacon, a traditional town of Dunmow, Essex. The flitch is a side of bacon, and the tradition dates back to medieval times. The townspeople would offer a prize of a flitch of bacon to a married couple who could prove they had lived together in harmony for a year and a day without quarrel. This quirky custom became famous, and it's still a part of Dunmo's history, which is why Lewis mentions it in passing.
Interesting. So, how did that tradition start? Did you just tell me and I wasn't paying attention? I'm sorry. If I repeat that for me. How did it start?
The tradition of the flitch of bacon in Dunmo dates back to at least the 14th century. According to local legend, it began when a lord of Dunmo, hearing of a couple in his area who had lived in perfect harmony, decided to reward them. He offered a flitch of bacon to any married couple who could prove they hadn't quarreled for a year and a day. The idea was that a flitch, a side of bacon, would be a significant and valuable prize, symbolizing the reward for marital happiness. Over the centuries, the tradition became formalized, and couples would be asked to swear an oath before a panel of judges that they hadn't argued or fought during their marriage. If they succeeded, they'd receive the bacon. Though the practice was discontinued for a time, it was revived in the 20th century and continues to attract attention today.
It seems unhealthy to encourage that. Shouldn't a couple at least fight or argue a little bit to help them work through the fact that they're different people?
You make a good point. While the idea of a perfect, quarrel-free marriage sounds appealing, it's probably not realistic or healthy in the long run. Disagreements and arguments can be a natural part of any relationship, helping both people work through differences, learn about each other, and grow together. Communication and compromise often come from facing challenges and conflicts. Encouraging couples to never argue could set an unrealistic standard, leading them to suppress issues rather than address them. In healthy relationships, it's not the absence of conflict, but how you handle and resolve it that matters. So, while the flitch tradition might have been amusing or symbolic, it might not be the best goal for a strong marriage.
All right, he continues. At St. Albans, we stopped to see the cathedral. I had been there once before in my Wynyard days, about 1909 or 1910, to sit and kneel for 3 hours watching Win Caprone, whom God reject, ordained a deacon or priest, I forget which. And here's a footnote. Let's see, 8 miles from St. Albans in Watford, the brothers had suffered for several years in Wynyard School before its demise in 1910. It had been run by Robert Oldie Caprone, or Capron, and his son, Wynyard, and it is the school referred to as Belson in Chapter 2 of Lewis's Surprised by Joy. Yeah, that's the schoolmaster who went insane and was beating his boy students there at the boarding school shortly before he got relieved of his duties and the school had to close down. Lewis continues, yet in those days, that day without work, the journey to St. Albans, the 3-hour service, and a lunch of cold beef and rice in an hotel was a treat for which we counted the days beforehand and felt, quote, Nessun magio dolor. Here it is footnoted, the translation, there is no greater pain than to remember times of happiness when in wretchedness. This is from Dante's Inferno, 5, page 121. So he says, when the following day brought us back to routine, I was rather glad to find the cathedral quite definitely the poorest English cathedral I had yet seen. So it was an interesting little memory that raised for him and Warnie, Robot Lady. I'm trying to finish off this diary entry, so if you want to comment on that, that's fine, but try to limit it to 20 words or less.
Lewis seems to reflect on both nostalgia and disappointment, highlighting how even cherished experiences can lose their luster over time.
Indeed, Robot Lady, indeed. Lewis continues, in the town, we bought 2 pork pies to supplement what Warnie considered the Spartan allowance of sandwiches given us by the mess. Robot Lady, YouTube is acting weird, and it looks like it's stopped our broadcast. I'm not sure what's going on here.
That's frustrating. It sounds like there might be a technical glitch with YouTube. Maybe try restarting the stream or checking the connection. Let me know if you need help troubleshooting.
Okay, I think we're good. It just looked weird here over on my monitor, but I think we're all right. Feel free to drop some feedback in the chat, if either yay or nay if things look bad or they look okay. That's not for you, Robot Lady. I'm talking to whoever might be watching right now. Let's see. Let me start over. In the town, we bought 2 pork pies to supplement what Warney considered the Spartan allowance of sandwiches given us by the mess, and he drank some beer. I think it was here that Warney formed the project of going far out of the way to eat our lunch at Hunton Bridge on the LNWR, where we used to sit and watch the trains when out on our walks from Wynyard. I assented eagerly. I love to exult in my happiness at being forever safe from at least one of the major ills of life, that of being a boy at school.
Lewis reflects on the freedom he felt as an adult of his schoolboy days. The simple pleasure of escaping the past must have felt like a small victory for him.
All right, yeah, Robot Lady, I agree. And we're getting feedback that the stream seems to be all right overall, so we'll keep going and try to finish out this diary entry and then close things down. Lewis continues, we bowled along very merrily in brilliant sunshine while the country grew uglier and meaner at every turn, and therefore all the better for our purpose. We arrived at the bridge and devoured the scene, the 2 tunnels which I hardly recognized at first, but memory came back. Of course, things were changed. The spinney of little saplings had grown quite high. The countryside was no longer the howling waste it once looked to us. Yeah, this is about 14 or 15 years since the last time they saw it. We ate at our egg sandwiches and pork pies and drank our bottled beer. In spite of Warney's fears, it was as much as we could do to get through them all. But then, as he pointed out, this was appropriate to the scene. We were behaving just as we would have done 15 years earlier. Having eaten everything in sight, we are now finished, end quote. We had a lot of glorious reminiscent talk. We developed our own version of Ce genus savait. If we could only have seen as far as this out of the hell of Wynyard. Yeah, I guess thinking back as boys, if only they could have seen themselves now, they probably would have had a little bit of hope needed to help them travail through their difficulties. Robot Lady, they wrote this part in French. Ce genus savait. What does that mean? Or Lewis wrote it in French.
The phrase si je nous savais translates to if only we had known, or if I had known us. It's an expression of regret or longing for the past, suggesting that if they had known how things would turn out, they might have found strength or hope through their hardships. It reflects that feeling of hindsight, where everything might seem clearer in retrospect.
Yeah, it makes sense. Lewis says, I felt a half comic, half pleasure, Hobbes's sudden glory, to think how by the mere laws of life we had completely won, and Oldie had completely lost. For here, we, with our stomachs full of sandwiches sitting in the sun and wind, while he had been in hell these 10 years. Wow. We drove on and had tea at Aylesbury.
This moment seems to capture a mix of dark humor and vindication. Lewis is savoring the contrast between his current contentment and the suffering of someone like Oldie, who had caused them pain. It's a reflection on how life can unfold unpredictably, with past struggles eventually leading to a more peaceful present.
Yeah, their former schoolmaster, I think, had died at this point, and I think that's what Lewis was referencing, that he had been gone for 10 years, and so Lewis presumes that he's in hell. Lewis finishes off the diary entry here. We drove on and had tea at Aylesbury, dizzy by now and stupid with fresh air, and got to Oxford before 7. That's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady, and of course that's all that I have time for today, so we'll end things there, but I want to give you the floor to just summarize what we've covered in this episode and any other thoughts you have before we end.
In today's entry, we followed Lewis and Warnie on a reflective journey from St. Albans. The day was filled with nostalgia and contrasting emotions. They visited the St. Albans Cathedral, revisited memories from their time at Wynyard School, and found a kind of satisfaction in their simple lunch stop at Hunton Bridge. The humor and reflection came from Lewis's thoughts on escaping his past and realizing how far they had come in life. The mention of their former schoolmaster, Oldie, who had passed, added a sharp, almost vindictive satisfaction for Lewis, contrasting their current comfort with his former tormentor's fate. Overall, the diary entry shows a mix of nostalgia, self-satisfaction, and a recognition of how far they've come. The contrast between the past and present gives insight into how Lewis processed the struggles and triumphs of his earlier years. I'd say it's a beautiful example of how Lewis mixed personal reflection with humor, often finding comfort in simple pleasures and in the passage of time. It also showcases the bond between Lewis and his brother Warnie as they relive their past together. That's about it for today. It's been great going through this with you.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Thanks for that recap and for the kind words. So that's where we'll end it today. Thank you, everybody who joined, for your time, your attention, and your contributions. As always, they are wanted and welcome. Until next time, when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together, to you and everyone else within the sound of my voice, take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's lands,